rugby fans and rugby coaches have short-term memory. You might have all this money in the bank, but like if you're not there for a certain period of time, that expires, it has an expiry date. So it's what are you doing in the present?
Hello and welcome back to our third episode of No Rucks Given. My name's Paul. I play for Exeter Chiefs and I'm joined by my wonderful co-host
Ross, play for Exeter Chiefs as well.
We're the podcast that loves to highlight the journeys and stories of professional players currently and to bring them right to your screens. So, Ross, who we got today?
We have the absolute pleasure of being joined by the youngest ever try scorer in a Premiership rugby final. He's a Premiership winner. He is a Benetton winger, an international superstar, Louis Lynagh. So, Louis, before we dive into your story, first of all, how are you doing? Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Louis. Sorry, we got to give him a round of applause. Come on, Ross. Come on.
I'll give myself a clap as well. No, thank you guys for having me on. No, it's an absolute pleasure. I'm doing good. I'm coming to you from slightly not that sunny Italy right now, but it's been good. Like we were talking beforehand, we've got picked up a little bit of a knock from the previous weekend, so it's nursing that a bit, rehabbing. So I'm joining you guys in the rehab crew.
Yeah, dark times.
Oh God.
You're not in for that long though, are you?
No, I'll be all right. It's just I'll be back in a week or two, but it's been pretty good. It'll be, enjoying my season here. The team's been on fire, and both Italy and Benetton. It's just been a completely different world to my experience last year. It's really positive this year, so I'm doing good.
You've scored a couple of meat tries,
tries,
including 4 tries in one game. How was that, man?
Yeah, no, it's pretty cool. It was one of those days where everything kind of clicked, both for me and the team. It was a sunny day at home and against a Lions team that probably was a bit tired. It was their third game in Europe after a long tour, and yeah, we just played out of our skins. And I got on the end of Kiki Mendy's line breaks. Apart from one try, I didn't really have to do anything apart from run straight.
Yeah, you're being pretty modest. You're being pretty modest. That was some finish and some serious wheels.
It's winger's duty.
So, Louis, we're just going to dive into your sort of story. Tell us about your early life. Where were you born? How many siblings you got? What were your parents like? Just talk us through that.
Yeah, I was actually born here, and oh my God, that's a cute. I gotta say, I feel like I was a cute baby. That is. No, I was born here in Treviso, actually. Same place, the same hospital as my mum. My mum's from Treviso. We were actually born in the same exact hospital room, so that's a trivia fact for me. It's been really cool. I grew up here. My my middle brother Tom was also born here. When I was 2, and then we moved across to London at the end of 2004. So kind of October time 2004, and then that's where I've been ever since. In Richmond, near Twickenham. There, and, my third and youngest brother was born in London in 2006. So, growing up, I was quite fortunate. I had 2 younger brothers who, both loved sport as much as myself, and had a dad, who played a bit of sport back in his day. He couldn't really play sport with us when we wanted to, because dusty shoulders, his knees hurt,
body in ruins.
We've got that to look forward to, don't we?
Exactly. Oof. But no, it's I was very fortunate to have parents who loved and cared about me, and always, whatever I wanted to do, whether it's sport or education wise, they always were my biggest supporters in that. And like, for example, I used to be into chess when I was younger, and my dad used to take me to chess tournaments in his free time. It was like, Jesus, I don't know why I used to do that.
Do you reckon he was hoping and praying that like rugby was always going to be the thing for you? Probably over chess, to be fair, but
yeah, I'm sure he was hoping, but it's no. I don't know really, because I have asked him that before, and he has always said like whatever route I wanted to take, they would always always support me. Obviously, rugby was always going to be there. It was the first sport I was introduced to when I was 5. I went down to Richmond on Sundays and played minis. I met a lot of my closest friends there. Started playing there, and it's for me, rugby was always the sport I loved the most. Out of me and my brothers, they actually did not love rugby at all when they were younger. They loved football and cricket more. Whereas I was always rugby. I loved other sports, but rugby was always the one sport that I loved more than anything. It was it just took with me immediately. I don't know why. It's just, and then I grew up always wanting to play. I played football and cricket and athletics and all that sort of stuff. But I always wanted to, from probably around 13 years old, I wanted to be a professional rugby player. So yeah, that's kind of my upbringing is, but always very competitive in our family, sports wise as well. If you ask my dad, he probably wanted me to play golf, not rugby.
So Lionel, my next question was sort of, were you always the athlete that we knew? When you first picked up a ball, football.
Some ball pictures. You can't escape it.
That forehead is big.
It's shrinking. It's
join the club.
Yeah, I think growing up playing sport is probably what helped it. Being pushed into all different sorts of sports, not just rugby, but football. Like we were saying, rugby, football, cricket. The basketball here and there. It's like it helped a lot. Especially, I think the one that helped the most was cricket, especially for hand-eye coordination. I loved playing cricket and still do. So it's and it's funny you say that because Dad used to play rugby and stuff like that. But when I was younger, I never really asked for his help with anything. I didn't really. You know how young kids are. They don't really listen to their parents. It's like Dad would say something, I'd be like, know what you're talking about.
Did you realize the level that he had played to at that age, or was it really just like Dad's dad?
Kind of Dad's dad until a certain age. Probably when I started playing at Hampton, like secondary school, when rugby started to get a bit more serious, I started to get involved with Harlequin's academy and stuff like that. So that's kind of when I was like, maybe I should start listening to some of his advice.
Yeah.
But I think just having playing the most amount of sport possible from a young age, I think is what I think every kid should do that. But I think that's what helped me develop quickly. And obviously, there's some luck with genetics in there and stuff like that. So I've always just taken to sports quite naturally, and still love playing all of them.
And did you have an idol that you used to look up to? Obviously, until before you knew that Dad was a famous Wallaby ex-international.
God, if we're talking rugby, I used to love Israel Folau. Amazing. I remember watching it when England went on tour. There, the one where they won 2-1, and I remember Folau. Just every time he caught the ball, would just somehow one step break the line and create a try or score a try. It's just I remember watching him. Probably I did. I loved Michael Jordan in basketball. That was another one. When I was really young, like that, I was getting into basketball, and my dad was like, "You've never heard of Michael Jordan?" And then made me watch his highlights, and then from then onwards I was like, oh, this guy,
that was your guy.
This guy was pretty good.
I was the same, to be fair. Massive MJ
but
fan.
Also genuine. But it's not just how good he was at the sport, like his mindset and demanding the best from everyone and wanting as a kid, if you are to go and ask my parents, was Louis competitive in whatever he did, they will be like, you must be joking. He's probably the most competitive kid ever. Like my brothers were just wanting to chill, and I'd turn everything into a competition. And
where do you fit amongst your brothers? Are you the oldest or one of the middle one? Okay, the oldest. Okay,
I'm the eldest. Then there's Tom, the middle one, and then Nick. They're both in Australia now, playing for the Reds.
Tom, there was an opportunity when we played, obviously, the Wallabies in the autumn, to play against your brother. Unfortunately, that didn't pan out. But what do you think that would have been like to play against your younger brother?
I mean, yeah, it would be quite fun. I don't know. I want to get him at the bottom of a rock or something. No, I think I wouldn't be able to concentrate really. I kind of just laugh, especially if I'd be a bit annoyed if I like ran at him and he tackled me. That'd be a bit embarrassing.
Would you chirp him?
He's like half my size. Oh yeah, I'll get into it.
It's only right.
Me, but no, but we do play them again next summer. We're playing Australia in Perth, so that might be, if I get lucky enough to get selected, it might be the opportunity again.
Yeah.
So it'd be pretty exciting. So
you started playing, obviously, as you said, at Mini Richmond Club. What position were you playing back then?
As minis, not. Oh my god, that's a hell of a dive. Jesus. No, it's at minis. Never really had positions. You kind of just ran around and tried to grab the ball and then run in a sideways angle and then run upfield after you run past the people. But it's when you got old enough to, have a bit of structure and positions, I'd probably play fullback mostly, fullback or centre. Yeah, but the one that stuck with me, and then the position I played, for academy and school was fullback. I loved fullback was my position.
Even now, how's that changed to wing? Like
Well, yeah. So through the academy with Quins, I was fullback then. I got signed as a fullback, and they kind of training. COVID happened, and then my debut was the last game of the first COVID season. If you remember, when literally no one was allowed in stadiums, and I came on as a fullback there. But then the next season, where it was kind of still COVID, half and half, I got my break on the wing. They just when did they put me? They put me on at started me against Bristol Boxing Day, and I started on the wing. It was the first time I'd ever played it. Obviously, I was training a lot in it at Quins, but never thought I'd play there. And yeah, since that game, kind of became a winger. It's where they could fit, they fitted me on the wing because there was Mike Brown at fullback at Quins, and then there was Tyrone Green who also came along, and that's kind of just where I happened to, get my breakthrough. And ever since then, I'm kind of transitioned to winger, but still now fullback I would love to play fullback fully. Obviously, it's a bit different to playing at school. You can't just really run it from anywhere, but it was really fun playing at school and in the academy.
What were you like at school? You're obviously a bright kid. Well, not so much kid anymore, but you're a bright human.
Go on, don't rub it in.
You're a bright human. What were you like at school?
Yeah, no, I was kind of similar, to be honest, just with less hair. I had a buzz cut back in some of those pictures. You'll probably see the buzz cut. Yeah, I struggled a bit. It was, maths isn't my strongest point, but no, I loved the school. I loved going to school and seeing all my mates and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, struggled a bit in school because rugby was kind of my priority. Sports was my priority. And, credit to Hampton especially when I got to sixth form, once I did my GCSEs, when I got to sixth form, they kind of realized, professional rugby is a genuine option for me. And they understood that I have to push myself very hard and from all the teachers, the head of years, and the rugby coaches, they all helped me towards that goal. But when it came down to crunch time, A levels, I said to my Quins coach, I was like, just give me 2 or 3 months because I actually need to study for once. So I actually took some time to study, and it was mad because it was the first time ever in like serious exams where I sat down and I saw questions that I confidently knew the answers. It was a weird experience. I thought I'd got straight A stars. I got A, but it's
still pretty good for only 2 or 3 months of studying.
Yeah.
No, well, I mean, I studied.
Yeah, but intense studying.
Intense studying. Which is a bit. I then told my mum, I was like, God, if I actually apply myself a bit more, I could have actually done a bit better. But I'm glad I got that done because A levels stay with you forever. And if I am doing, if I want to apply to university and do a uni course, A levels are very important. So once you get those, once that's sorted, then it was just rugby the whole way, really.
And rugby wise at Hampton, were you guys pretty successful?
So we could have been a lot better, but so the pictures in the background, that was at St. Joe's Festival. I played there for, in my 3 years in the first team, and I think it was, I don't know if every year we won the plate or 2 of the 3 years we won the plate. We should have got through to the cup competition better, because Hampton won the whole thing the year before I got eligible for the first team. But no, it was a great experience. It was, some of the rival games were pretty tough, playing Whitgift and Wellington and stuff like that. God, it was, because Hampton isn't really known as a sports school. They don't have sports scholarships. So it was kind of more focused on academics, and if any sport, it was rowing or football, which was the priority for them. So up until a few years before me, rugby wasn't really a big thing at the school, and then now it's probably one of the biggest sports there. So no, we had a really good team, and like I said, made a lot of mates for the rest of my life there. And
you put them on the map, cool. You put Hampton. Yes,
I didn't. No, I didn't. I did not do that. Like I said, they won the cup before I even played for them. So it's not. No, I did nothing. It was just part of the team,
Louis, and then at school, obviously playing rugby, you would have been playing through the A team through what, under 12, under 13, under 14. Did you get the chance to play other sports, or did you excel in other things, other hobbies, as we might see that on the next slide, modeling or anything?
Oh, jeez. Oh, my goodness. God. Hey, I'm looking dapper there.
You are looking pretty good.
Buzzcut makes another appearance.
Where is that?
That's in Monaco. That's the World Rugby Awards.
Oh, wow. So that actually was... Yeah. Well, let's just say that it was at school.
Yeah. We'll say that at school. I was 18. I was straight out of school. But it was...
Look at the pout on it.
That was... look at that. Look at the jawline. Where's that gone?
Jeepers.
Blue still
up a bit now.
And football, cricket, at what age did you play that up until?
So, like you were saying, from under 8s, I played rugby, football and cricket. Those were the major sports that the schools I went to played. So in primary school, played that, went to Hampton, and then under 13s, 14s and 15s, I got to play only rugby and cricket. It was winter, between football and rugby in the winter and autumn, and then summer was athletics or cricket, and I chose to do cricket, and it was so such fun. I loved playing. It did take a lot out of your day though. Your whole Saturday's gone, and then you've got homework on the Sunday, so you don't really have a weekend. But it's it was good fun. And then it kind of got to a point, I think it was probably under 15s, where I was like, look, now I've got to concentrate on rugby. It's, the rugby season would finish in school, but it wouldn't finish outside of school. There'd still be the academy stuff, and and if I don't do gym or skills work for 4 months whilst I play cricket, it's you start rugby again and you're kind of behind people. So it's it got to a point where I was like, look, I'm just going to focus on rugby and do gym work and skills work and stuff with quit. And so it was loved it. It got a lot of opportunity to play different sports.
So then you get drafted by Quins at the age of 13. How does that actually work with schooling? Are you still go to school, and then you got in the weekends you're in camp, or how does that actually work?
Yeah, so I actually didn't get into Quins until I was 14 or 15, because I had an injury with my back. That would be Monday nights when you were younger, when you were 15, there'd be Monday nights every month or so. And then as you got older and older, it'd be Monday nights every week. Then there'd be summer camps, which I'd which I rarely went to actually, which is always just on holiday.
In Biarritz.
It was funny because one time I think it was when I was 16 and started to get, 16 or 17 when it started to get serious, when it started playing games and stuff like that. I turned up to like the camps and stuff, and Lennox and Yanwu, who's now one of my best mates, was like, hold on, what? He saw my dad like sitting on a log on the side watching the pitch. He's like, why is Michael Lynagh here? And I was standing next to him, and I was like, yeah, that's my dad. And he was like, what? No, because hardly anyone really had met me because I wasn't really there. And ever since then, it was kind of Monday nights at Quinn's training, and then there'd be the school season, and then it would go into the Academy League, which is where there'd be the South and North academies. You play all of your South games, so it'd be like Queen's Gloucester, Sarries, London Irish when they're around, Wasps, and then there'd be a final at. It used to be at Six Ways, but then it was now at Saracens, and yeah, that's what I did for 2 years, and then 18 years old, I got my first pro contract with Quinn's, which was pretty cool. It was signed there around Christmas time, so it was a good Christmas present from them. It was nice, but and then kind of from there went into the setup.
So, but a couple of years before you sign your first pro contract, you get selected for the England under-16s. What does that feel like as an Italian born with Australian blood?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was pretty. England on the 16. We were actually the last year to have that happen. After that, they canned it for some reason, which it's been going on for ages. And no, it was really, really weird, to be honest. Looking back at it, playing for England age group my whole way through my career up until I now played for Italy, and it was just cool to be able to do that because at that age, when I was 16 years old, you're playing academy rugby and school rugby. That's all anyone talked about at that age, 16 years old. There'd be this Wellington festival where all the under 16 academy teams would go and play for 2 days at Wellington School, and kind of it happens before them, but then after that, the selection for the under 16s happened. I remember everyone was like playing the best rugby ever. Like if you found some of the highlights from that festival, it's mental. Like some boys are playing out of their skin, but did that, and it was really cool to be a part of, and first taste of international rugby. And if you look at the under 16 squad in my year, there's some serious talent in there who's now kicked on, like the likes of George Martin, Rafi Quirk was in there. Some really good boys. So it's it's good. It was really cool.
So then you push on to make the under 17 and under 18 side, where you go on tour to South Africa. Was that a humbling experience, or did that really drive you into wanting to kick on with the sport?
I mean, it was both. It was definitely a humbling experience. God,
why are you smiling so much, Ross?
Because that's Saks. That's one of our rival schools at Bishop's.
Okay.
That's where we played South Africa. That picture, and that Evan Roos was playing, and he was the same size as he is now back then.
Wow.
I remember he broke through the line, and I was playing fullback, and he just ran straight at me, and I was like, oh Lord, please help me.
He was the same size back then as he is now. It's scary.
Genuinely, and same speed and everything. But it was luckily my mate came up behind him and punched the ball out before he had time to run me over. But it was it was the first year England was actually taking the year below. So all the other teams at this tour was at the end of their under 18 year, so they're all older than us, whereas we're under 17s going into under 18s. So we're the youngest team there by a year. And, we play France first. They basically got pro players in there already. Get humbled. Play Wales. We win that game. And then South Africa, we just lose that game. But yeah, it was...
Oh, was it tight?
Well, it was the first...
Was it a tight
Yeah, it was
game?
like...
Oh, wow.
I think it was about trying it or something.
And was this around the time? This must have been before the ChatGPT meal plans. I'm just seeing a little bit of a something going on down there in the lower belly.
I would like get that picture off Batch, please. No.
Put it back on.
No, definitely. There's a bit of a spare tire going on there, but it's that was the start of the end of the hair as well. It's starting to get a bit old, but no, it was cool to have my family there. And
Yeah,
it was like you were saying, it was the first taste of like proper like rugby, men's rugby, and from there on it's kind of kicked on, and just carried on from there.
And then you come back from that tour and you sign your first professional contract, like you said, at the age of 18, which is an incredible achievement. What was that like as a youngster? What was it, something you'd always dreamed of? Just talk us through that whole professional contract.
Yeah, no, it's definitely like you were saying. I didn't send you the picture of me signing it in my kitchen and in my
in your boxes.
I was in my pajamas. No, it was awesome. Like you were saying, it's kind of everything I dreamed of since I was 13, 14 when I realized it was kind of a reality. But Dad, as he's always been with me, has kind of kept me grounded. If we talk, like, for example, the under 16s England stuff, it was a massive occasion at that time. But I remember him saying, I think it was after the game, he was like, look, this is great that this has happened and everything, but you do realize like 8 out of 10 of the guy, for example, 8 out of 10 people who play under 16 don't, make it through to professional. They kind of think this is the be all and end all and kind of stop trying. Whereas you've got to take another leap. And that's kind of the same thing he said to me when I, got signed by Quins. It was like, look, this is great, but you could finish this 2-year contract and then they could cut you because you haven't kicked on. So it's kind of not putting a dampener on it, but just putting things into perspective and telling me, look, like the potential's there. You just got to realize it and work hard for it. And, I like to think that's what I've been doing. And, there's 100%. every time, me, Ross, pretty well. And, even if I play well, I'm my own worst enemy in that regards, is that I always see the worst in everything and I'm quite self-critical. So it was a really cool occasion, but like I said, it was just another step in the career, and it was good to kick on from there.
I think that links pretty well to what you were saying at the beginning of the episode about, so many talented players, play for academies and so few of them come through. And obviously like that advice that your dad gave you is, in my eyes, what separated you from the rest. What was that experience like of watching, your teammates at Quins, some of your England under 16, under 18 mates basically get cold, I
know
it's pretty brutal.
It was quite well, exactly. And I can't think of names off the top of my head, but there's so many people who played through the age groups, and I'm sure you're the same, but it's like you've heard of similar people who are just, when you were at school or in the academy, you watch these players and you're like, geez, like this guy is like the next thing, like he's untouchable almost in school, and never really kicks on. And that might be because he's bigger than everyone else at that age, but then everyone catches up, or he's got all the tools now, but then he stops working on them and everyone catches back up. So it's like that's what Dad used to say. I remember one night he, for some reason, made me do planks for as long as possible in the family sitting room. My mum was like, "What the hell are you doing to him?" And he was like, "He has to do it." And it's like I don't know why, but he kind of sat me down a few times and was like, "Look, I don't know, me more so than my brothers, I think, because he was kind of like, because he'd been through it as well. It happens at all ages. He played with players that had so much potential, but never realized it. Even at the top level, people who had made it and he was playing with it, for example, at Saracens, the sport had just gone professional and people were starting to get paid. So talent can only get you so far. It gives you an advantage and it gets you to that spot. But if you then don't work hard on top of talent, there's always going to be someone who's working harder than you, who's going to be down here when you're up here, and then slowly he's going to get there and he's going to overtake you. And then once that happens, it's a long road back to, getting back that position you may have lost. But
There's a nice saying that summarizes that.
Yeah.
The hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
True. Just to add on to that, like, I think that is such an important point because, you know, I grew up in a similar area to you. I grew up in Walton-on-Thames, if you know where that is. Like, not far from you at all. But, you know, the social currency at like a schoolboy level when you're playing for Quins was absolutely massive. Like, I remember going to parties and watching Quins players and be like, oh my God, it's this guy and it's that guy. And, you know, as you were experiencing that as a player at that age group, and I think what you've just mentioned is probably how you were able to remain humble. I'm sure there were some moments where you let stuff get to your head. Actually, I'm curious to know about that. Were there any particular moments in that age group when you were just like, oh, I'm the guy?
There was one. It was actually one of the pictures you put up in the background of me diving to score. I think it was against Dulwich. It was a cup game, and Dulwich was like our big rivals. And it was in my upper sixth year. I was captain, and it was in a cup, you know, knockout round of a cup. And there was this game that I scored 2 tries in and one like length of the field try, and it was, you know, ran through and dove in the corner, and there was a massive crowd on the side full of like school kids and parents. And I was like, I scored that try. I was like, and I can't tell you the amount of times I rewatched that try and just listened to like the noise in the background. And it was like, I went into school the next day in class, and my teacher was like, mate, we heard that the crowd scream from indoors in the school. And it was like, I was like, this is cool. But then, you know, we got knocked out the next round. So
and then your dad makes you do the planks, and then you're humbled again.
And then I come back home and he starts making me plank for 10 minutes. But that's cool. You mentioned you went to Reeds. Did you know Jack Kenningham?
Yeah. So Jack was we're in the same boarding house. Yeah. He actually punched me and split my eyelid one time. But we're boys. I look up to him. He was actually a really nice guy. He was a really nice guy, actually. Hopefully we can get him on the podcast at some point.
What did you do to him?
So we had S&C in the morning. I think it was like at 7:00. And we had these boxing gloves just outside the gym, and we were waiting for our like S&C coach to come in. And he took one glove and I took the other one. And I was quite a chirpy, you know, young guy. So I was just like, yeah, I'll take him. And he was like Quinn's, like, you know, academy, like legend at that point. And I swung first, hit him, didn't really make a dent. And then he just does the lightest swing, catches me on my eyelid, splits it. Yeah. And that was, he actually didn't even do anything wrong. It was probably more me. But lesson learned. Lesson was learned.
As a youngster, we're going to have to dive into that.
At some point.
We're going to need to get you on the podcast, Paul. I'll jump on and I'll interview you.
Okay. I like that.
So, Lewis, now you go from Hampton's sixth form, where the boys are chucking around jewels in the common room, to the Harlequins changing room with the likes of Danny Kerr and Chris Robshaw. What was it like breaking into that changing room, and who were the sort of characters?
Yeah, I mean, like you explained, there was Quins as a history of, you know, having these amazing players. And, you know, I grew up watching Quins and the Premiership and then, you know, international rugby. And, you know, Quins had these legends, and I walk in as an 18-year-old, looking like that. And actually, I was a lot skinnier than that. That must have been a slightly older photo. That was, you know, meeting Danny Kerr, Joe Marler, Chris Robshaw, Ben Tapawai, Mike. Did I say Mike Brown already?
No, not yet.
No, Mike Brown. Like Marcus at that point had already broken through and became who he is. You know, all these guys, and it's like I walk in there and I'm kind of the way the Quins dressing room at training ground was set up. There would be, you'd go walk in, and the right is where all the first team would be, and you know they got all their certain pegs. And then you turn to the left, the toilets are here, and then just before the toilets are these benches. And if you're lucky as an academy guy, you get one of the pegs on the benches. If not, you kind of just throw in your bag on the floor, and that's your changing room for the year. But it was like you'd get all this. At that point, we were with Adidas. You know, you get this massive box of kit, and you know, I'm staying at the academy house at the top of the pitches near where we train, and you know, just walk in and you don't really know what to say. You're just trying to avoid eye contact, say hello when you pass someone, and stay quiet. Because at that point there was Paul Gustard as well was the head coach, and you know I learned pretty quickly, if you don't know your stuff, you get called out in meetings and stuff like that. So that's when I realized, Jesus, this is what professional rugby is like. Is like meetings, and they just ask randomly, Lewis, what's this? And I'm like, oh. And I probably did know the answer. I was just too nervous to say anything. But no, it was, it took about a year for me to come out of my shell. Well, 6 months or so to come out of my shell, and then kind of got the reputation as this weird, quirky, this loud, loud kid, and quirky. Yeah, I'm weird. It was weird.
Hey, it's a good thing to be weird.
Exactly.
Yeah. At least they knew you and your character as well. That's
exactly. No, but I, like I'm sure you guys know, as previous academy guys and youngsters in a first team, is you kind of just try and stay quiet and not really draw too much attention to yourself.
And did you suffer any imposter syndrome? We spoke about this with Ethan on the first episode. When you first come in and you want to be quite quiet, but then, hey,
that's a recent one, isn't it? That's a recent one. He's not too skinny there, is he?
That's COVID training. That's one of the best pictures I've ever had. Yeah. That went straight on the Insta. I was single at that point. Sorry, carry on.
No, just about imposter syndrome, and obviously you want to stay quiet at the start, but how long does that imposter syndrome sort of last for? And was there anything that you did that helped you get out? Did you have other youngsters who you could spend a lot of time with?
Yeah, so there was a big group of academy guys, and you kind of stay close to them, and then you had like Marcus, Caden, and people like that who had already kind of still academy in their age, but they've already kind of broken through the barrier between first team and academy because they had started playing, and they would spend more time with us because they're still young. So I remember living in the academy house, and Marcus spending a lot of time there with us, and it would be awesome. He's this guy who's just come out of school, basically is now Quins' first team 10. He's ridiculously good player, and as a guy straight out of school, having playing FIFA against him in my downtime, it was pretty cool. So it's stuff like that. But no, it was like you said, it's all well and good, staying quiet and like knowing your places to speak. But I think it got to a point where I was training quite a bit with the first team, and I was getting a lot of reps in training, and I was still nervous and you're not really showing my true colors. And I think, I can't remember if it was a thing that happened or it kind of just clicked for me. I don't know, it was after probably a lot of chatting with coaches and players. It was just when you're on the rugby field, that just let it go, and just like, you can be quiet off the pitch, but as soon as you're on the pitch, you need to be the loudest person out there. And that's kind of what it still happens now. I know, Ross, when you play with me, like I just chat nonstop on the side, like when we're playing, even if it's not really useful information, you're just always constantly hearing me. So it's kind of,
I can't say that. I can't say that just stays on the field. I think that actually comes off the field as well.
yeah. But now I've broken out the shell off the field too. So it's I think that was kind of the turning point, was when I started training a lot more with the first team playing, is that they got to rely, you become one of the players, they have to rely on you, so you can't just be in your shell, as to speak. And then it's also, I'm not sure if we'll move on to it, but it's when it was another thing that happened when I made another step forward when I was in the England camps, when Eddie was a coach there. Obviously it's your first taste of international rugby, not playing, but training at, Penny Hill Park with all these players who have had like 20, 30, 40, 50 caps playing international rugby. And kind of that's, again, I then go from like up here and then I'm straight back to the bottom again. And it's, staying quiet, minding my own business. And then I remember Eddie pulled me to the side once and was like, mate, I want you to be a peacock. I want to see like spread your wings. And then like kind of from there onwards, it was bam. Like, okay, now that he said I can express myself. So it's, you know, I don't. We'll get on.
We'll come on to that in a little bit.
Yeah.
I've got a question though about, you know, a confidence thing, not necessarily just about Eddie Jones and stuff. So like, was it just a conversation that led to you being like, I'm just going to express myself? Or was it stuff like, I don't know, paying more attention in meetings or practice? Like, what was the driver behind the confidence? Was it just a switch for you that was just like, boom, I'm confident?
Yeah, no, it's kind of a bit of both. It was, you know, when you have someone who is the ultimate decision maker, for example, let's take Eddie Jones, who is the head coach of England, telling you, just be you. I want to see you. That's why you're here. You know, express yourself. You're like, in your mind, you're like, geez, all right, then kind of everything else goes out of the window, and you're like, I don't care, you know, who you are, or, you know, how many caps you've got. I'm still gonna, try and, I don't know, tackle you, or I'm going to try and beat you one-on-one or something like that. And, you know, it took me a while to realize that rugby is rugby. You know, what happens on the pitch stays on the pitch. Like, it's not personal. So you can demand more from others without being, you know, about it, basically. And then come straight off the field and it's completely fine. And I think it was the same with Quins. You know, I was training a lot with the team, and then, you know, it got to a point where I was suddenly playing, and the coaches, Paul Gustard, Nick Evans, you know, who I credit a lot of my success to, is an amazing coach, was like, just be you. You're here for a reason. And, you know, being you got you here in the first place. Don't, you know, give 60%, give 110% to whatever you do. And, you know, the rest will take care of itself. And, you know, and the players as well, they were, you know, so happy, because at that point, you know, I was the young guy, you know, who was coming through and playing for the first team. I was the youngest in the team, and they were all like wanting me to succeed. So it was for me, it's kind of like a switch like that, where I can have a conversation with someone. It doesn't have to be the most important guy in the team, but it can be just a conversation. Suddenly it just all happens. I don't know why. It's always like that for me. It can be the reverse as well. If someone tells me something bad, or, you know, I get dropped without much reasoning, the reverse happens. Suddenly, like, my whole world's crumbling around me, and I'm an overthinker, and I can't really get out of it. I struggled with that too. So it's a positive and a negative.
And you go on to make your Premiership debut against Leicester Tigers, and you were 19, I think, when you made your debut. What is that like? You obviously had the family there.
It was the first, like I was saying, it was the first season of COVID. Well, it was like that season where COVID happened, and then it restarted, and there was kind of this weird. It was when Exeter won. Yeah, it was when Exeter won that season.
2020.
And I remember I played, my debut was against Leicester in the last game of the season, of the regular season, and I was on the bench, and it was Chris Robshaw's last and 300th game. Wow. So it was really, really cool. I don't know if you have it in the pictures, but there was a picture I took with Danny Kerr, because before the game, my dad sent me a picture of me when I was in Richmond Minis lifting a trophy, and that Danny Kerr who presented to me.
Oh wow!
When he was like 23 or something, and then so I then took a picture with Danny, and so it was kind of this kind of surreal moment, you know, debuting, having to tackle Nandolo twice. That was scary. that was like at the height of his powers for Leicester. It was like he just break through 2 tackles, and I came on as a fullback for like half an hour, for 30 minutes in that game, and he just seeing him running at me, I'm like, well, you know, here it goes now. He kind of just grab his ankle and hold on to it.
Hey, once you tackle Nandolo, you must feel like you tackle anyone on earth, though.
Wait, genuine. Even though it wasn't a proper tackle, I was like, I feel like I played well just because I tackled him.
And was Dad?
But like,
Dad must have been proud. But was he? Did he try and ground you as well at the same time, or was he? You know,
no.
I
think it was. I think it was just because it was the last game of the season. It was kind of just a kind of a cool moment to. Obviously, they weren't there. Sadly, they watched on TV. Yeah. But it was really, really cool to be a part of, and, got to finally share the field with these legends. And, it was an honor to be able to play in, Robbo's last game.
Mm. Then the season after that, which was the 2020-2021 season, you become the youngest player to score in a Premiership final, and you are playing the Exeter Chiefs in
isn't it?
What we'd love to say was a packed stadium, but obviously COVID protocol meant that there were only a couple of people there. But you got your family were there, maybe a couple of friends. Tell us what happened.
Oh, geez. Yeah, well, the whole season was a bit of a whirlwind. It started off crazy. We were not playing very well at all. Like I said, my first game that season was Boxing Day against Bristol at home. Thought I had a good game, but we'd lost. Played against London Irish the next week. Pretty sure we lost that too. Then there was a period where I didn't play much, and then there was a change in the coaching. Paul Gustard left. And I remember after that happened, a few days after, when we all came in, kind of Danny and the leaders had a whole team meeting. I remember saying that the clearest thing that stuck out at me was he stood in front of the group and said, "Look, lads, this is on us. There's no one left to blame. We either pitch in and do our jobs and, fight for every inch, or, we just let this season go by and let it be." And, we got on this amazing run from there onwards. And I was injured for a few months in that season. I played 7 on the bounce, and then my groin just was in agony and couldn't run. And I spent 2 or 3 months just doing planks, basically. My dad tried to warn me. That's what he was trying to do.
He knew what he was doing. He knew what he was doing.
He knew it. Nah, but so I came back for the second to last game of the season. There was Sale away, and then there was Newcastle at home. Played those games. We got into the playoffs, semi-final against Bristol away. And at that point, Bristol, they were the boys. They had their super team, Ben Earl, Max Maylands, Nathan Hughes, Charles Piatel. They were the best team in the league. And it was, if you went to the bookies, they were probably clear and away favourites to win the title that year. And, got told I was starting in the semi-final, and that game was hectic. 28-0. 28-0 down. Domers scores just before halftime, so we go into halftime 28-7, I think, and come out the second half. Something, I don't know what happens. We score try after try, goes to extra time, and we win. We play a 100-minute game, and then the next week we have to go and play a final against Exeter Chiefs, who had just had a grueler against Sale in the other semi-final, and have the likes of Stuart Hogg and Ollie Devota and all those guys, and it's Johnny Hill, and this team that had won the Premiership the year before. And again, I got lucky enough, got picked to start the game. And I remember the day before, Marcus and the kickers were going to Twickenham to do some kicking, and the DOR, Billy Millard, asked me to come along because he was an Aussie, and we got on really well, and I got on well with Marcus, and he was like, "You've never played at Twickenham, come and have a look around."
Take it all in.
And I remember walking around the pitch, and it's kind of a ritual I do now before games, before Italy games and stuff like that. It's walked around the pitch, and I remember talking to Billy, and I was like, "I'm going to score in that corner tomorrow." And I know that sounds fake, but I promise you it was real. And the next day, obviously, it happens, and I score 2 in the same corner. I said I'll score in that corner. And and the picture in the background happens. We win the game, one of the best ever Prem finals. And like you were saying, Ross, the stadium wasn't full. There was only 10, 15,000 people in there. But I kid you not, when we won, or when the tries happened, like it sounded more than 80,000 people. It was incredible. And, it's such a shame that a final like that didn't have a full stadium to experience it. But, it's a day, even now thinking about it, goosebumps. And every time I see a video of a replay of the match or something like that, I still can't believe it happened. And it feels like, years and years ago, but still very recent. It was just, hopefully I get another opportunity to win silverware, either in England or here in Italy or anywhere.
So going back to your pitch walk tradition, does that come about almost basically like to settle your nerves, or to make you aware of like you're bigger than the stadium or the moment? Like what does that add to you pre-game?
I don't know. It's kind of, I'm quite a superstitious guy. So it's, if a game goes well and I've done a certain thing, or I've worn a certain pair of boxers, or I've worn a certain pair of boots, I'm going to do that exact thing for the next game, even if I didn't do it beforehand. So, for example, the pitch walk I do now in international games, because I just feel like, there's in club games, you don't get much opportunity to go to the stadium beforehand and do that. Whereas international, we go there, captains run the day before and you have time in the stadium. But this season at Benetton, I started, doing some grounding and meditation when I arrive at the stadium on the day. So I kind of just go and stand underneath the underneath the post and, close my eyes and do some meditation. And it's kind of worked. So I kind of just do the same thing. I then when I get dressed, I have the same I have the same routine, from taking my boots out of my of the boot bag to putting the same clothes on at the same time. So it's really weird. I don't know
Sounds
why
like Scotty.
I do it, but
Yeah, a little bit. The beginnings of OCD a little bit.
Oh no, I have OCD. That's probably the reason. Yeah, that's another thing. It's light switches. Oof. They get it. The ones that the ones that you click up and down. But if they're not all the same way, I have to click them the same way. I then have to find the other switches and make sure they're flipped down or whatever, and make sure everything's, because I've tried to leave them be. It's just something in my head that makes it not work. It's weird. I told you I'm weird.
That is strange.
So you go from winning the Premiership final, and just when you think things can't get any better, you get the call up that summer from Eddie Jones to be in camp with the England boys. What's that call like? What's the whole experience? Did you get a call? Did you get an email? Talk us through that.
Oof. Yeah, no, it's weird. It was again another weird experience. It was so after that World Cup, not the World Cup, after the Premiership final, there was the England camp that happened. I didn't get into that one, sadly. That was the one with Tong. When it was where they played USA, I think, or something like that. I then started the following season. It was actually the season of the montage you put up at the start.
Oh, okay.
And after that Newcastle game, with the tries you saw in the montage, I actually got a call from Eddie the next morning at like 6 a.m. I missed it. I woke up and I looked at my phone. I was like, who the hell tried to call me? I then saw a WhatsApp message. Lewis, mate, it's Eddie Jones here. Give me a call when you can. I was like, ran out of bed. My missus was there and she was like, what's wrong? I was like, Eddie Jones has just called me. I need to go and take this. And she was like, okay. But no, it was him just saying, I'm going to put you in it was actually where this picture was taken. It was like a 40-man camp at the Lensbury, kind of a pre-England season introductory camp, one of those 1 or 2 days where they go through everything. So I went to that, and I remember at the end of that camp we were all having lunch together in like it was like a big, all of us players were around this big table, and Eddie was coming around saying bye to everyone, and he came up to me and I was like, Lewis, mate, great camp, your first camp and your last. And I was like, thank you.
Oh my word.
It was in a funny way.
Okay, he didn't mean it.
No.
Okay.
No.
Oh wow.
But I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. That is nah, it was strangely, me and him have always got on quite a lot. It was yeah, I always got on well with him. That's another, we'll get onto that. But yeah, so it got to the autumn Nations sort of games, and initially I wasn't in the initial squad, and Eddie called me to be like, "You're close, just keep playing, keep doing your thing." And it was a game against Saracens that we won, I believe. It was a Prem game, and I played pretty well in it. And I remember I got injured in that game, and I got back into the change room. They were like, "Yeah, by the way, you've been called up to the England squad." I'm like, "No." And what had happened was I'd got tackled, and I'd had both the Vunipolas land on me on my side, and my rib cartilages popped. So I had like 3 popped rib cartilages, and I went into England camp. I was like, this is crazy. I then saw the physios, and they're like, "Yeah, you literally can't walk, let alone train." So then I went home the next day.
That's gutting.
Didn't even train, which is a shame, because life works in a weird way. Maybe I would have played a game there. Anyway, gets the Six Nations time, and again wasn't initially in the squad, but then I got there after the first week. There was an injury, and then I got put into the squad fully. Where you train every week, and then if you don't play, you go back to your clubs and play. That I had that a lot. I then had COVID the week of the Ireland, Ireland game, and apparently I was meant to TR on that one, but I didn't. And then the last game of that Six Nations was against France, and it was the year France won the Six Nations for the first time. And I remember I was traveling reserve for that game in the Stade de France. I mean, it was incredible. Like, it was such a cool experience seeing them win it there as well. And then obviously didn't get to play there. And then it got to the summer, and England were touring Australia that summer. And, I'd been talking with the coaches a lot. There was a lot of positive signs. And then it got to the last game of the regular season. We'd already made the playoffs for that year. We had Exeter away. And it was a hectic game, like crazy. Ended up losing, but I also ended up tearing my meniscus that game. And I didn't know. It happened in the first half, played the entire game. The next day, my knee was like a balloon. And yeah.
You scored a worldie in that game. That was when Smith stepped, was it Yendel?
Oh.
Steps Yendel on the try line, and then run the length of the field with no meniscus.
Yeah, I know.
Adrenaline's a crazy thing, isn't it? Like, what you can do when you're on it.
It probably didn't help at all. I stepped off it as well, so it's like, but it was crazy, sad and crazy. It was, I tried to conservatively rehab it for a week because, the physio at Quins was like, we need to try and get you on this tour, because from all points all the signs were pointing to me going on this tour, and I just couldn't do it. And we had to call it. We ended up having a surgery. Eddie called me and he was like, "Louis, mate, what have you done?" And I was like, "I'm sorry." Like, it was sad. And then they ended up going on that tour, winning it. I ended up spending 8 months rehabbing an injury that should have been only 3 months.
Yeah. So this is something I wanted to bring up. Yeah. Is your whole injury process. You obviously had the meniscus surgery just after you realized that you weren't going to go on tour. So you've had a sort of double blow to your confidence. Navigate us through the whole rehab process and the disappointment that you had to face, because you had to have another surgery on the same knee, didn't you? Because something wasn't quite right. So just talk us through that whole process and, how you managed to get through it, your support network, and because a lot of players, we know. Well, I mean, we're going through it now in rehab. Well, you're almost out, hopefully. But rehab can be a very dark place. You go from playing in front of crowds of 20,000 people to just being in, we call it the rehab dungeon for 5, 6, 7, 8 months,
no sunlight,
and how was that whole experience for you? And talk us through everything you went through.
Generally the experience it was my first proper injury. I'd never had a surgery up until that point in my life, and hopefully don't have any more, touch wood, but it was it wasn't the greatest experience. Like we were saying, I had the initial blow of not making the tour and having to have this surgery, but there was some hope. It wasn't the biggest surgery. It wasn't like an ACL or something like that. It was a meniscus repair. And, I had the best surgeons on it, great physio staff at Quins. I had England, guiding them with it. And, everything was positive. I had the surgery. They said it went well. Instead of shaving it off, they tried to repair the meniscus, which, I was young and I'm a winger. They try and do that to long term, so it doesn't reoccur or it doesn't turn into arthritis in the long term, whatever. So it was going well. Rehab was going well. It was getting to the point where, I was starting to come back, and it was during the time of the autumn internationals. I was again, going and talking with coaches in England and in and around the squad, just not there being part of the squad, but, talking to them and getting ready for when I come back into the Prem. And it was literally, rehab went by fine. It was the week of my game back. It was a Prem Cup game against Northampton. I was selected to play in it. And I was starting, doing all the training. And then 2 days before I had finished a training session, I was like, look, to the physio, I was like, look, my knee's been giving me a bit of like bother the last few days / weeks, which they knew. And they were like, okay, look, let's go and get you a scan just to see how it is. Came back and there was like, they said, look, there's a loose piece of meniscus in there that's floating about, giving you discomfort. It's annoying, but it's a quick clean out. You'll be back in 2 weeks. You'll walk out of the hospital. And I was like, okay, look, that's annoying, but we move kind of, and we'll go and do it. And, go in there, same process as last time, get put under, I wake up, and I just have this pain in my knee. I've got this massive cast on, and I'm like, this doesn't feel like I can walk out of here. And so I get the doctor comes in and like says, look, because in surgeries, I know you guys probably know this, but if doctors open up the knee, they have full right to do what they think is necessary if they find something that they didn't find beforehand in the scans. So they went in there and they found more things that were wrong. I can't remember fully what was wrong, but I think part of the repair hadn't taken. So it had failed slightly. So they had to shave off a bit. They had to re-repair something. So basically they had to redo the surgery. And, double knee surgery took its toll on my leg. Like I had basically no muscle left in my right quad. And yeah, it was pretty hellish, to be honest. It was pretty tough. It wasn't so tough the initial part. Like it was annoying. Like I remember I was like really angry, and then I was like, look, it's fine. We're gonna make the most out of it. We're gonna rehab hard and come back again. But I remember the rehab process. It got to a point where it was the same every day. It was the same thing we were chasing, but it just wasn't working. We were trying to achieve a certain number on the, the electronic
IKDs.
The electronic quad extension thing.
Yeah,
we were trying to achieve a certain number without pain or achieving the number, and I just couldn't do it. One, I either couldn't reach the number, or two, I couldn't do it without pain, and it just kept happening. It took it was months, and it was it was pretty tough. But then eventually, saw the light, and
hey, we can't skip straight to the light. We got to ask about that period. Well, first of all, what keeps you going when you're experiencing repeated failure? Were you sulking? Like, what? How did you react to that?
I was kind of blessed. The physio and S&C team, they were really good with me. I was being a bit of a dick, to be honest. I was like, why the hell isn't this working? Like, let me go and play and stuff like that. Because I was feeling strong, but I wasn't getting that target that they were looking for. And I was like, well, then what are we doing? Like, surely there's more stuff we can do. And it was just like, they sat me down, I think, and they were like, look, it's literally just a time thing. There's nothing we can do. It's unfortunate. And I wasn't kind of sulking. I was just upset that I'm missing out on so much. I basically missed out on a whole season when it should have been only 3 months. And looking back on it, it was a massive year for me. And because then Eddie left England. It was a new England coach, and by the time I came back, the whole system was different. I was kind of out of the loop. Even at Quins as well, it was hard to get back into that team because every new players, coaches had changed and stuff like that. So it's kind of, an element of shit, like I need to get back soon. Otherwise, I remember Marcus telling me like rugby fans and rugby coaches have short-term memory. Like you might have all this money in the bank, but like if you're not there for a certain period of time, that expires, it has an expiry date. So it's what are you doing in the present to be able to, and that's complete. At that time, I was really annoyed. I was like, even when I came back, I was like not playing as much, and I was getting annoyed. And looking back on it now, I was like, it was completely warranted because I'm not an 80 cap international who, for example, I don't know, in your guys' example, is maybe Henry Slade. He can come back from a long-term injury and come straight back in the team, but that's because it's completely warranted. He's played there for 10 years. He knows what he's doing. Whereas I had a great 1.5, 2 seasons, won the Prem, but I'm still a 22-year-old, 23-year-old non-international. And, it's good to have a confidence that, I can be back at that level. It's just looking back on it, I should, understood where the physios and S&C staff were coming from, and not being a bit more respectful, but understood the process a bit more. And that's something that I know we'll talk about, but my knee injury here at Benetton, that's something I took into that injury, is that, right, this has happened. It's a terrible timing because it was just before the Six Nations. There's literally nothing I can do about it, but there's something I can do to make sure when I come back, I am going to be 100 times better than I was when I first went into the injury. And that's, I think, where I got it wrong, me and maybe the rehab crew as well at Quins didn't get it right, was they got me back and they got me maybe to that same level I was at before, maybe just below. I didn't get myself back at a level above that, which is, I think, where I struggled, because then I came back and I wasn't as explosive anymore, and I kind of hadn't really gained on anything. And it took a while. I guess it might just be a meniscus thing, but it gave me so much pain the next year, even though it was completely fine. It was just, hard to train on. It would hurt. I'd play, it would hurt. I would jump, it would hurt. I'd kick, it would hurt. So it's like, it was, I'm not sure if that's just because of the injury it was, or maybe I could have done more to make myself better. But I'm happy to fit. I think now that I'm 100 times better player than I was, but I'm physically, that is, especially after the injury I had here at Benetton, I committed to just being, doing everything possible to coming back better than I was before, both, mentally and physically. And I like to think that's what happened. So it's learnings. Yeah. And it's also it didn't help that it was my first real big injury.
Yeah, I think the mental aspect is something that you have to get right and just come to grips with, because the physical aspect will come when you're training every day, but to be able to be in the right headspace and take it as zoom out a little bit and take it as an opportunity to, like you say, come back stronger than you were before, with having reflected on what you've done well, what you haven't done so well, I think is something that every player, every young player navigating injury needs to go into the rehab process thinking of.
Absolutely.
So fast forward a couple of years, you obviously go through that tricky period with injury. It's the 23-24 season, or 22-23 season. It's the Champions Cup. You playing against Ulster. You score an unbelievable try, but you sort of feel that your time at the club could be coming to an end. Talk us through what that experience was like, and how were you feeling at the time? Were you in negotiations? And was that a tough process to go through, really?
Yeah, it was the season after pretty sure it was after my knee injury. It was the first full season, and there was a new coach. And looking back on it, like I was saying, I lost a bit of what I had before the knee injury, so I wasn't playing as much. My confidence was low. I was getting dropped. Wasn't really having that, communication with the coaches, or with the coach, and it was tough because as a young player and as a person I am, it was quite difficult to understand what was going on. And I just kept getting in my own head about it all. It was like, and then the opportunities when I do get to play, I would overthink everything. One mistake, that's my head gone for the whole game, or for however long I'm on the field, and that would take away from me being me, the natural stuff. I'm a player that when I'm playing at my best, I'm not really thinking. I'm just doing stuff. And that first half of the season, even though I was still playing quite a bit, starting games, it just wasn't me. And I got dropped, and I was in and out of the side a lot. And then, like Ross said, it got to this game against Ulster, Champions Cup, and I wasn't even meant to play in that game. I wasn't in the team. The night before, I got told I'm onto the bench because someone had dropped out with a calf niggle. And then I'm like, okay, great, that'll be cool. Get there. My mate Oscar, who was starting, Oscar Beard, he got knocked out within 10 minutes. So I was just straight on, and scored 2 tries, had a great game, got man of the match, and I wasn't really thinking. So it was kind of a kickstart that I needed, and it was great because if you rewatch that try that I scored, you can see all the players coming up to me and like kind of hugging me, because I think they knew what I'd been through, and how much I was struggling, because they could tell, because they'd played with me long enough that the Lewis that was playing that season wasn't full of confidence and doing amazing stuff up until that Ulster game, up until that moment in Ulster. You see all the guys being like, what the hell was that?
Where's this come from? Type.
Where's that come from? Or like, where's that been? One guy, Will Collier, I remember saying, he's like, you took your bloody time getting back to where. But it was nice. And then after that Ulster game, we were, like you were saying, Ross, it was a tough period between me and Quins regarding contract negotiations. It was something wasn't working, and for one reason to another, we just couldn't agree on anything, and ended up not getting an offer. And in that period in time, Benetton had offered me a contract that was ongoing throughout my negotiations with Quins, and it got to a point where I had to accept the Benetton offer, because it would have been stupid not to, because I had no other option really. There was no other option on the table, and it would have been silly for me to reject it. And I accepted the Benetton offer, and 2 days after, Gonzalo,
I remember,
the head coach called, and he was like, you're coming into the squad next week.
Yeah,
we had France.
We had was it Six Nations, or did we? Oh, it was Six Nations. Six Nations.
It was the France game,
and
it was the one after your debut.
Yeah, after the France game, then we had that week off, and then we it was Scotland week, and we were rooming together, weren't we? And you were named in the side, and there was that whole episode with Netflix that never ended up featuring. But you said, do you remember? You said, I'm going to score tomorrow, and on your debut, you scored against Scotland. What was that like?
You've got a habit of that, don't you? Just speak it into existence.
Visualizing.
Maybe I should just keep saying that.
Say something good for me as well, please, because it seems to work for you.
No, it was cool. Like Ross saying, we were rooming together. That Scotland week, obviously found out that I was starting, and surreal moment. Six Nations playing against Scotland, who was on a heater at that point, and again, it was just this weird, like, kind of realization. I've gone from hardly making the Quins team to now about to make my international debut against, one of the best sides in the world. And it was kind of what we've talked about before. It was kind of like, right, I'm going to have to switch here. I need to just forget about everything. And this is a new challenge. And yeah, it was funny. We had this the Netflix thing in the room, and Ross was being awkward as usual. And I remember us chatting, and I was like, look, we're going to win tomorrow, and they're going to play this clip in the thing when we win and I score a try. And literally, I was saying they should cut to the game now. And literally, we end up winning. It was probably one of the best days ever, on par with winning the Prem with Quins. And yeah, it was just surreal. And I kind of think that was the kickstart for the Italy team to start, moving like that. And, then next week, get the opportunity to play again against Wales, win in Wales. Yeah, it was a very, very good start to the international
You put
career.
them on the map. You put Italy back on the map, just like Hampton. Lynagh, bro, it's been unreal having you on. Thank you so much for sharing, everything, your whole story. We've thoroughly enjoyed hearing everything about you, and we're wishing you all the best for the rest of the season.
Mate,
thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Cheers.
No, thank you guys. Good luck with the rest of your rehab.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, mate. Likewise.
We'll chat soon.
Cheers.
Yo, Ross, that was pretty good, wasn't it? That was pretty incredible. And I think Lewis was just able to tell his story in so much detail. I don't know. How did you find it?
Yeah, he's such a good guy. He speaks so well.
Yeah.
It's amazing how he remembers such specific details.
Yeah. No, it's helpful for our
everything.
podcast.
But I love this the whole injury story, and he's clearly reflected on what didn't go so well during his first injury and taken that into his following the injury.
Yeah.
I think that's great advice for guys like us and also youngsters who are navigating the whole injury process.
Yeah, I think for me the key takeaway is how he was able to remain grounded even after experiencing early success. Like, we've spoken about it a million trillion times, at how experiencing early success kind of leads to one or two ways. And most people they take one path of, letting it get to their head and thinking that's enough. And then they eventually stagnate. But I feel like Lewis was just so, big up his dad.
Yeah. Mikey,
yeah. For just letting him know that, like, the success that you achieve early on is only just the beginning, and you need to keep looking forward. And certainly in his journey, like, that advice paid dividend, because you saw what he was able to achieve from under 16, where he thought he was big dog around Surrey and whatever, to now being big dog around Italy. So yeah, really, that was really, really impressive. So we'll just wrap up the episode there. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's been a pleasure to be able to share Lewis's story, and it's been a pleasure to share the podcast studio with my boy Ross. Hopefully we see you again at the next episode.
Catch you soon.